Hello. I'm inviting you to join me in an experiment. Normally, I prefer to speak, lecture, preach, whatever, without notes. More mistakes, but more freedom and liberty in speaking. But on this occasion, I'm going to speak from a text. And to make matters even worse, the text I'm going to speak from is in fact an extract from my book entitled What is Man, Adam, Alien, or Ape? And I should be very interested in how viewers receive this. And some feedback would be appreciated, positive or negative, whether this kind of video is going to be helpful and is going to be, I hope, enjoyable as well. Because the book, although dealing with some fairly technical issues, is written in a layperson-friendly style, and is in fact intended to be readable by people who are not scientists and even by teenagers. So let's have a go, see how we get on. I'm going to start with chapter 2 because chapter 1 is a general overview of the book. And I thought chapter 2 would be a more interesting place to start. But if there is a clamor for me to do chapter 1, then I will do it. Furthermore, I think it unlikely that I shall do a whole chapter in one session. Chapters are reasonably long, but we'll see how we go. I don't want to speak for much more than 20 minutes, and certainly not more than 30 minutes. So here we go. Chapter 2 is entitled The Cheshire Cat Cosmos, and it has a subtitle, Can a Universe Create Itself from Nothing? And the chapter begins with a quotation from the late Stephen Hawking and Leonard Mlodinow, and it reads as follows. Because there is a law like gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. Spontaneous creation is the reason there is something rather than nothing, why the universe exists, why we exist. It is not necessary to invoke God to light the blue touch paper and set the universe going. Before we proceed to consider what is man, it will be helpful to ask a more down-to-earth question. Where is man? For if the universe or cosmos is a meaningless accident of nature, containing billions of life-supporting planets, then everything in it, including man, is also likely to be accidental. If, on the other hand, it was created by God, as the Bible claims, then man is also likely to be special or even unique, brought into existence for a purpose. Our view of cosmic origins will inevitably affect the way we see human origins and the significance of man. So, how did the universe come to exist? Why is there something rather than nothing? It is pleasing to report that atheists like cosmologist Stephen Hawking, cited above, and Lawrence Krauss, in his book a universe from nothing, have come round to the idea that the universe did, after all, arise ex nihilo, that is, out of nothing. Thus, they endorse a view proposed by the Bible over 3,000 years ago, while denying that God has anything to do with it. In this chapter, we're going to see how they reached that opinion, but we shall do more. We shall also pursue their atheistic thinking to its logical endpoint, namely the necessity of God. So let's retrace their collective steps as they stumble their way to this surprising conclusion. In order to do so, we need to review how atheist thinking has evolved over the last 100 years or so. Subheading, Who Made God? Who Made God is, of course, the title of the prequel to this book. But here we'll focus on the reason why this is the atheist's favorite ontological question. In full, the question reads, if God made everything, who made God? And it is asked with an interesting purpose. To help explain this, I need to retell the story of the Tower of Turtles, or tortoises. A turtle is an aquatic tortoise. Anyone who has read Who Made God, or Stephen Hawking's earlier book, A Brief History of Time, will be familiar with the story, but I need to repeat it here for newcomers. The apocryphal story relates how a little old lady challenged the speaker following a public lecture on astronomy and the solar system. Your lecture is all wrong, she said. The Earth is not suspended in space, but is supported on the back of a giant turtle. So what is the turtle standing on? Asked the lecturer with a superior smile. On the back of another turtle, she replied. And what is that turtle standing on? Pressed the lecturer. It was the lady's turn to be scornful. It's turtles all the way down, she declared triumphantly. Whether true or not, the story is surely a libel on little old ladies, but it does serve to introduce us to the fallacy of infinite regress or regression. An infinite regress consists of an unending series of explanations in which every explanation needs in turn to be explained by another. Like the infinite Tower of Turtles, such explanations have zero explanatory power because they never make contact with the ground level of reality. It is this kind of reasoning that lies at the heart of the Who Made God question. Atheist standard bearer Richard Dawkins seems to think it is a valid question. He writes, a God capable of continuously monitoring and controlling the status of every particle in the universe cannot be simple. His existence is going to need a mammoth explanation in its own right. Thus, he argues that if God exists, he is so complex that he must have evolved from, or been created by, some simpler pre-existing entity. Anyone foolish enough to concede his point is then obliged to explain where this pre-theistic entity came from, so launching irretrievably down the slippery slope of an infinite regress. But of course, an intelligent atheist knows exactly how a theist will answer his question. No one made God, because God is the uncreated ground of all existence. So why do atheists persist with the question? They have a good reason for doing so. What they really want to establish is that by ascribing cosmic creation to God, theists have already committed themselves to an infinite regress without realizing it. Never mind the second turtle, God is the first turtle. Let's spell it out. We all agree that the universe exists, but, say the atheists, those who claim it was created by God are replacing a real, visible, and tangible cosmos by an invisible, immaterial, and implausible spirit as the fundamental existential reality. And that, they maintain, makes no more sense than saying that the Earth hasn't dropped out of the Milky Way because it is supported by a turtle. The ball is surely in the theist court, ? Well, yes, but it is returnable. Subheading: the brute fact universe. The argument so far leaves atheists with a dilemma of their own, namely an inexplicable universe. Firstly, any attempt to explain the origin of the universe in physical terms risks the danger of an infinite regress of material causes. Secondly, if the physical cosmos is itself the ultimate reality, then there is no point in trying to explain its existence. It must be accepted as an inexplicable brute fact. Keith M. Parsons, a professor of philosophy at the University of Houston, puts the matter clearly in a discussion with Ed Feser, associate professor of philosophy at Pasadena City College, California. I think you and I agree that explanatory hierarchies will come to an end with an uncaused cause, something that has no causal antecedents and is the original, fundamental, or primordial reality that possesses a set of distinctive properties which constitute the ultimate terms of every explanatory regress. I see no reason why that ultimate reality cannot be the original, fundamental, or primordial and brutally factual physical reality. Where is the incoherence? A brute fact would be a state of affairs that just is, with no cause or explanation of its existence or nature. Most older atheists, like British philosopher Bertrand Russell, also embraced this worldview. To them, the cosmos was the only accessible reality and must be taken as given. It would be delusional to seek to explain how it came to be. To quote the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Bertrand Russell denies that the universe needs an explanation. It just is. Russell, following Hume, contends that since we derive the concept of cause from our observation of particular things, we cannot ask about the cause of something like the universe, a cause that we cannot experience. The universe is just there, and that's all. German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche held a quirky version of the brute fact universe. in which the cosmos recurs endlessly over infinite time and space, so that, quotes, all configuration that have previously existed on this earth must yet meet again, close quote. This concept included a kind of personal reincarnation. Quote, again, this is quoting Nietzsche, and thus it will happen one day that a man will be born again just like me, only that it is hoped that the head of this man may contain a little less foolishness, close quotes. Still in the quotation from the Stanford Dictionary. Although Nietzsche theory strikes us as bizarre today, it lives on in those modern cosmological models in which the universe cycles endlessly between phases of expansion and contraction, and in certain far-out multiverse hypotheses in which copies of ourselves exist in a myriad parallel universes. Until scientists began to appreciate the implications of Einstein's general theory of relativity, published in 1915, the scientific consensus, even among theists, was that the universe was the eternal backcloth to our existence, an unchanging stage on which the drama of life was played out. In fact, Einstein himself was troubled that his equations did not at first describe a static universe, but only one that was either expanding or contracting. Believing that the fault lay in his theory, he therefore inserted a fudge factor, which he called the cosmological constant, and which had the effect of allowing a static universe to exist. When 20 years later, the cosmos was found to be expanding after all, he described the fudge as his, quotes, biggest blunder, close quotes. You can read the full story in chapter 7 of Who Made God. As we saw in the previous section, some philosophers still cling to the brute fact universe, but the great majority of scientists have moved on. There are two reasons for the near demise of the brute fact attempt to circumvent the need to explain the origin of the cosmos. Firstly, it never did sit well with the incurable curiosity of the human mind. Tell scientists not to bother their heads about origins, and they will redouble their efforts to find out where everything came from. A child's first sortie into philosophy is, "Mummy, where did I come from?" The child is not seeking a lesson in reproductive biology. Recognizing for the first time that it has a self which is distinct from the selves of its parents and siblings, it wants to know how that self came to exist. The curiosity only grows as we develop from childhood to maturity and extends to every aspect of the world around us. Furthermore, it is this curiosity that drives the scientific enterprise. Why, for example, do we spend billions of dollars building atom-smashing machines like the Large Hadron Collider at Geneva, or radio telescopes seeking to tune in to alien versions of family favorites? Curiosity may be fatal to felines. Curiosity killed the cat, but it is the lifeblood of pure science. But to be told that because the universe is the ultimate reality, there is no point in asking where it came from, simply does not satisfy our thirst for knowledge. But there is a second and even greater problem for the brute fact universe. Namely, that the overwhelming consensus among cosmologists today requires the cosmos to have begun. Once again, I must refer the reader to Who Made God for the full story. But the discovery that the universe is expanding leads most experts to believe that it had its origin in a hot Big Bang, which itself emerged from an initial singularity. That's a theoretical condition where physical quantities like density and temperature are infinite and the laws of nature no longer apply. Although there is no shortage of speculations about how the singularity might be avoided, the evidence in favor of a singularity origin of the cosmos is strong. One example is the mathematical proof by three leading cosmologists, Arvind Borde, Alan Guth, and Alexander Vilenkin, none of whom has any religious axe to grind. In the Tufts University paper Tufts Now, Jacqueline Mitchell writes, "By now there's scientific consensus that our universe exploded into existence almost 14 billion years ago in an event known as the Big Bang. But that theory raises more questions about the universe's origin than it answers, including the most basic one: what happened before the Big Bang? Some cosmologists have argued that a universe could have no beginning, but simply always was. In 2003, Tufts cosmologist Alexander Vilenkin and his colleagues Arvind Borde and Alan Guth proved a mathematical theorem showing that under very general assumptions, the universe must, in fact, have had a beginning." Close quote. The article continues to explain that Vilenkin and his student Audrey Mithani have since examined three potential loopholes in the 2003 theorem, strengthening the original premise that the universe did, in fact, begin. Vilenkin does not ignore the claim that as a singularity is approached with decreasing size, quantum physics may take over, making it doubtful that a singularity would ever actually occur, and replacing it by a tiny quantum egg. But he makes clear that if this happened, some laws of nature would still need to operate, a point I shall develop shortly. He also argues that any such quantum egg would be unstable and unlikely to have existed eternally in the past. To summarize, Vilenkin himself is clear enough about the implication of his work. Quotes, "It is said that an argument is what convinces reasonable men, and a proof is what it takes to convince even an unreasonable man. With the proof now in place, cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. The upshot of all this, anything that begins to exist must have a cause. And if the universe had a beginning, it must also have a cause." This is fairly self-evident, but is formalized in what is called the Kalam cosmological argument. It is such reasoning that has led atheists like Stephen Hawking and Lawrence Krauss to propose in recent books that the universe created itself, leaving God redundant. So let us consider their claims. Well, we've reached page 41, and I'm going to leave this episode at this point. let me know what you think about it.